Welcome to Business Reporter's Future of Work campaign. Now, technological change shows no sign of abating. In fact, the pace of development in digital industries is so fast that finding, upskilling and retaining talent can be a serious challenge to companies. To explore a strategic approach to this problem, we've invited to the studio Bex Roycroft, Director of Global Emerging Talent Operations and Reskill of M3, a company that helps businesses develop their own employees and future employees in order to stay ahead of the curve. Bex, welcome. Let's start with the skills shortage in tech. It's a widely known problem. Are there simply too few skilled people available for hire, or are some companies just unable to attract them?
So there are enough people. The real question is actually whether there's the right people in the right skills for the right technologies. And for companies, it's really difficult because technology is constantly changing. They're having to continually innovate to keep up with it. And all of that makes it really difficult for hiring. And then you look at things like graduate programs being incredibly cyclical and the job life and the tenure reducing within technology. It means that actually to keep and meet all of your technology staffing needs is really difficult.
So what are then the options available to companies that are perhaps struggling to find the right people?
So there are actually quite a few options. You could use your own internal recruitment or HR teams, websites, job boards, or your traditional recruitment agencies, or there's outsourcing. But some of those are quite expensive or could be costly if you make the wrong bad hires. And I think I read once that Tony Hsieh, who is the CEO of Zappos, once said that he'd estimated the cost of bad hires being $100 million in his company. So there is actually another option, and that's actually building your own talent pool, whether that's sort of reskilling or bringing emerging talent into your organisation.
So you're advocating upskilling existing employees. That's an important component to this, and I imagine it's very important at the moment. We've spoken about technological changes and jobs market in the future that actually will need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So reskilling is one big part of it. So the Future of Jobs report actually has estimated that 75 million jobs are going to be displaced by 2022 across 20 different major economies. But at the same time, 133 million jobs are going to be created. And that's down to technology advances and new ways of working that are actually going to see people working with machines and algorithms to meet the demands of the changes, economic changes and demographic shifts. But that's only one half of it. So as we've said, is that you also need to look at this for a future workforce, is deploying things like the emerging talent strategies. And these do take longer to initiate. And so you will see results in the medium term. But most importantly, for the long term, you're future-proofing your workforce.
Okay, so let's say I'm a CEO of a company. You've convinced me.
Good,
congratulations. Where does M3 come in?
So M3, we have two parts of our business. The first one is our emerging talent and alumni brand, and the second is our reskill business. So looking at alumni, we take computer science and STEM graduates, we train them in the very specific technologies that our clients need, and then we embed them on site with our clients in their organisations. And once they're embedded on site, we then look after them and support them with their continual learning and development over the time that they're there. And then at the end of the programme, they get the opportunity to sort of convert or transition to the client's own headcount for free, which is great, not only for the company because they retain the knowledge, but they also keep the individual that they've had for the 2 years. And hopefully they're bringing future leaders into their business as well. And then there's reskill. So reskill is taking their client's own employees, so people that either want to change roles or maybe roles that are kind of being displaced or lost, and reskilling them into those specific technologies as well.
Let's take learning the basics of coding, just as an example, which at the beginning I understand is pretty general, and then very quickly it can become very tech specific. Given the rapid change of technology, how can you ensure that you adapt your clients' emerging needs?
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, the moment we've built one curriculum, then it's out of date and we have to immediately adapt it. So within both our alumni and our reskill businesses, we work directly with the customers to understand their environment. So looking at their infrastructure, what skills do they need now and what do they need in the future? And I think that's really important to make sure that the people coming through are really relevant and trained in what they need. But it's not just about the training up front. So yes, we do the sort of 6 to 8 weeks training up front, but actually it's a bit about that continual journey that I talked about, and making sure that throughout the entire time that they're there for 2 years, that they actually get the continual training and development so they keep up with the client's needs. And I have teams of dedicated engagement managers whose sole purpose is to focus on these individuals' learning and development.
I'm the CEO again, by the way.
Okay.
And I'm interested in cost, inevitably. And it sounds quite an expensive process. I suppose from day one, from the training, the applications, all those, who is going to pay for that? And the risk of churn or abandonment, is that me as the client, or is that you? So
at M3 we actually took the decision to pay all of the graduates ourselves, and the reason we did that is because the financial burden obviously would rule some people out. So by taking that away, we actually opened the door to more people and more opportunities. And I think, yes, there is a bit of risk for M3. Occasionally we do have people that come through our programmes and they do leave for whatever reason, they find something else. But it is actually quite low. And the reason that it's low is because the training that we do, we talked about the real world experts, is actually bringing all the theory that they learned to life. And we start bridging the gap between what they learned at university and the actual skills and knowledge they need to be successful in that first role and at the interviews. And when they realise how much they actually need, they tend to stay in the training. So the attrition is actually pretty low.
Okay, so just reading between the lines here, it seems to me that you're implying that universities can only go so far. That graduates leave and there's a bit of a gap, a drop-off, and that's not being filled, or it's being filled by you. Is that fair? Is there that gap when people leave university?
Yeah, I think the universities have got a really tough job, as we've talked about. There's just so much technological change, and for them to keep up with the demands of the industry is really tough. And curriculum, we said, never stands still, so their pathways come out outdated pretty quickly. I think the other thing is that the universities don't have access to the sort of business problems and the business context, and that's what our instructors and sort of technical experts can really bring to life. So it's quite often that we talk to graduates that have been on our training and they say, oh yeah, I covered Java when I was on my degree, and yes, I understood it, but until I've actually done it in a business context, like, I didn't really understand it. And that's a classic. Learning to code Java is one thing, but building a faster payments platform for an investment bank is something completely different. And until they do that, the theory doesn't really prepare them for that job. And, you know, look, there's hundreds and thousands of jobs globally that just aren't being filled. You know, there are companies recruiting in roles that are out there, but the reason people can't fill those roles is they're looking for the perfect person. They're looking for a person that ticks all of those boxes and meets all those skills, and there just aren't enough people out there. So the only way that companies can do that is to fundamentally shift their mentality into training and developing and bringing people through. And therefore, universities are going to need people like M3 to help bridge that skills gap to prepare people for those roles.
So finally, Bex, what do businesses need to do to close the skills gap?
I think companies need to be really bold to tackle this problem. And talent is out there, is absolutely everywhere, but you've got to be willing to develop it. There's so many underrepresented groups within technology, and if we can focus on bringing more people into the industry by being willing to train them, then that will solve a lot of the problems. And one thing that M3 is actually doing is we've kicked off a campaign this year called Aspire 1000, and the sole aim of Aspire is to train 1,000 people for free. And we are going to do that for people from underrepresented backgrounds and to give them that opportunity to get into technology. So through our careers placement teams, they'll be working with them to help them find that role. But what we need is companies to work with us. So we have some great names that are already signed up, but we need more. And we want companies that care about equality and diversity within technology to come and work with us so that we can guarantee that these individuals get roles. So for me, 1,000 is just the beginning, and I hope that it's going to be many more.
Bex Roycroft, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.